Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1634, 1634. Mike Matthews did not do a Super Secret Sunday show yesterday. No, it got a little busy. And I had to watch videos on YouTube that I was behind on. Videos that pertain to amusement parks that I will never go to. That's the kind of interests that I have. But
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Today we'll have Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the Engineer. It's Memorial Day, so you have
Mike's Daily Podcast.
The day off, and we thank the troops, the soldiers we've lost, and then the cost of having freedom, a country in which we live, and people have that ultimate sacrifice that they give. And I think I summed it up. It's an important day that
Mike's Daily Podcast
that we have every year. And then summer kind of begins today, so
Mike's
actually it really does.
Daily
Because it got really hot
Podcast
today at Pleasanton, where we're doing the show today. It's like 80, it's in the high 80s. It's the hottest day of the year so far in Pleasanton. So Pleasanton gets pretty hot. I'm in a nice air-conditioned cafe anyway, so I don't have to complain. But yeah, look who just walked in. I just have tremendous respect. And, it's a very, very difficult job. A job that one can only imagine how. So, doing a podcast, not as difficult. Although people are walking in and I'm not saying hi to any of them, and I should do that. I should be a host. That's my job here at Cafe anyway. Let me say hi. I'm going to say hi to them now. Nah, maybe not. Hey, I watched an incredible video on Netflix yesterday, a documentary called The Galapagos Affair. And it has to do with the Galapagos Islands, which I do not have a podcast picture of, although Ariel's going to pop by and say something about the podcast picture, which I will tell you is of a butterfly that I saw recently in Podcastro Valley over in this particular area where they've got, I think this is the first big weekend of
And here's today's podcast picture.
the lagoon in Coal Canyon, and they open up for the kids. But this is not of that lagoon. It is of a butterfly near that lagoon. And it just happened to be there. I took a picture. I was walking my wonderful dog, Basil the Boxer, who we will hear bark in a moment. I'm going to predict. So, yes, the Galapagos Affair is on Netflix. It is a very bizarre documentary in that so much was documented back in the 1930s. We're talking like 32, 34. Oh, thank you, Basil. There he is. We had a wonderful time. Oh, my gosh. I didn't even realize that in this document. They have some big names that are the voices in this documentary, including the guy that played Ted on How I Met Your Mother, Josh Radnor. He's one of the characters, because they have all this documentation, all these writings from the people that lived on this Galapagos Island where things got a little crazy. Kate Blanchett plays one of the characters, and then Diane Kruger, the blonde German actress, she was in Inglourious Bastards. So it came out in 2013, this documentary. It's about a series of unsolved disappearances on the Galapagos island of Floriana in the 1930s among the largely European expatriate residents at the time. There was a baroness named Baroness von Wagner, and she looked a little, and I thought about this later, looked a little like, you know who Maggie Gyllenhaal is? It looks a lot like Maggie Gyllenhaal, but back in the 1930s. And they actually filmed a silent movie with her on the island. And it was a very bizarre little movie that actually foreshadowed possibly what ended up happening to the Baroness. She was not very nice to the people on the island, and somebody made her disappear. They never found the body. And there was a guy that was with her. She basically had a harem of men that attended her every wish. But my lovely lady friend, DT, told me about it. We watched it together, and I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. It mentions here, the 1934 film, The Empress of Floriana. It is shown in its entirety in this documentary. The 4-minute short, it was only 4 minutes long, is split into halves. But yes, very, very foreshadowing of what would happen on that island, the craziness. And apparently it was such a big thing at the time. There were newspaper articles printed all around the world talking about the things that were going on this island. So, yeah, who knew? I had no idea. So that's what I did on my Sunday evening, which was like a Saturday evening because I had today off. And I didn't have to deal with my crazy, unruly students that I usually have to deal with that do a radio show, that have no concept of how a radio show should sound, and I'm always trying to nudge them along in the right way, and it's just like every time I deal with them, it's like dealing with a bunch of teenagers throwing rolled up newspaper chunks in my face. But no, I didn't have to deal with that today. Yay. Yeah. Awesome. So I did watch a lot of fascinating stuff about the amusement parks. One of the things that apparently is going on if you go to any of the Disneylands around the world is they've converted all of these Space Mountain rides. Some of them used to be different, have different setups inside. Now they all have to do with Star Wars. Now, this is what I don't quite understand about Disneyland, is they have a ride, it gets successful in one place, they completely, brick by brick, replicate it in another location elsewhere on the globe. And there's really no point. You never need to go to a Disneyland or Disney World or Euro Disney or Disney Hong Kong or Disney Japan. You never have to go to any of those because you've got the same thing here. Or is it the same? Or eventually they will become the same. There is a ride, their version of Pirates of the Caribbean in Hong Kong is insane. They use huge movie screens, but you're still floating around in a boat. But then you go backwards down a slope, which the one in Anaheim, all you do is go forward. There's the robotic pirates that have been there since 1972 when it opened. And it's the same thing, although they did add a Johnny Depp-looking pirate to the mix. But the one in Hong Kong has to do with some of those animatronics and the movie effect, which is amazing. And they're putting that more and more in the Disneylands. But I have no desire to go to a Disneyland anymore. They're way too expensive. The crowds are crazy. And the thing that really broke the straw on top of the camel, and then the camel broke apart, and I don't know what else, sorry camel, is that the last time I went to the Magic Kingdom with my mom, this kid stepped on my mom's foot and didn't even say sorry. And I'm thinking, this is the type of, and this was over 10 years ago. And I thought even back then, this is where our society is going with unruly, crappy kids. And I don't want to be I don't want to be somewhere where there's a gazillion of them. So forget it. I'm done. Now, I work with a guy on my weekend job who loves Disneyland, loves everything Disney puts out, just goes ape droppings over it. And I don't see it. So meanwhile, Disney is suffering a huge defeat today with Solo, the Han Solo prequel, with the guy that kind of looks a little like, what's his face, and sounds a little bit like him. Big deal. And Lando Calrissian apparently is pansexual in this. It's bombing. It's not bombing, but it's certainly not doing as well as all the other Star Wars things. So I kind of like that. I'm excited as heck about that. I'm really thrilled that it's not doing well. And the problem is Disney as a company, they use this expression a lot. They bake it into the cake. They bake it into the cake. In other words, they assume that these movies are going to be huge juggernauts. And when they're not, it may not be so good for them. So I don't own stock in Disney. I know a guy who does. I don't think he's very happy right now. I mean, well, he doesn't have emotions either way. He's emotionless. But anyway, cafe anyway.
Anyway.
There is this thing called...
When you are a man.
Cristabo.
Sometimes you wear...
There's a guy named Cristabo that I work with.
stretchy pants.
And he really cool kid. He sees every movie that comes out. He loved the new, Deadpool, which I will never, ever, ever see. That does not appeal to me in the least. I like Ryan Reynolds. He's funny, but no. And then, he saw the Avengers one and all that. But he said that he's not going to see the Han Solo movie, which blew my mind because this guy sees everything. Every comic booky, sci-fi-y thingy, total nerd kid. But he said no. He goes, I'm not. They're rewriting it and they're taking it a different. I'm oversaturated with the Star Wars, is what he said, and maybe that's what's happening in general to the viewing audience out there. And then I wanted to say one other thing. And that is, I was at Trader Joe's on Friday, and I witnessed something very odd. And that is I'm waiting to go through the line to leave. And the people that check you out at Trader Joe's just seem to be the nicest people. They always ask you how you're doing. They ring that little bell all the time. I don't know what that's for. And this lady, though, she's waiting in line, and this is the one in Fremont, so they get lines quite often. And she suddenly shouts out at the top of her lungs. She's picked up a bag. As you're walking through, as you're about to check out, they always have those point of purchase items, those things that you see, and just you're like, oh, I could use this. And you don't think twice about it. You just buy it because it's right there. She saw this package of some kind of, I think it was one of those little treats, the pretzels that are full of peanut butter. And so she's got that in her hand, the bag, and she's holding it up, and she goes, this bag says there's no preservatives, but you can't have preservatives if you have peanut butter. At the top of her lungs, she says that. And everybody's like, well, what the hell do you want us to do about it? And the cashier, the checking people out, they're like, lady, don't you see full lines? You want us to respond to you? Go over to that table, that weird, what is that kind of, is it an information booth that they've got when you first walk into a Trader Joe's? The guy's kind of up on a little bit of a platform. And I know he's doing something with the money. He's doing that. He's kind of, but he's also the information dude. I don't know, or woman. I don't have any issues with those people that run that. But that's who she should have gone up and talked to, is what I'm saying. Not just shouting it out to the world. What? She should start a podcast, which I hear Trader Joe's has a podcast now. So she should be on that podcast and complain. Maggie Gyllenhaal, by the way, I was discussing how the Baroness von, what's her last name? Von Wagner, who mysteriously disappeared. Maggie Gyllenhaal looks so much like her from in the Galapagos Affair documentary. But she has made sure that her television show, The Deuce, on HBO, which takes place during the 70s and has to do with all the crime and corruption that was going on in New York, in Times Square. And she is, and it's called The Deuce because it refers to that part of Times Square that is, let's see, I just saw, 42nd. It's the nickname for 42nd Street between 7th Avenue and 8th Avenue. I have not watched this TV show, but it takes place in the early 70s in Times Square. Written by author and former police reporter David Simon and his frequent collaborator George Pelecanos. It actually began shooting back in 2015. It was picked up as a series in 2016. First series consists of 8 episodes. Has to do with the drug epidemic, the resulting real estate booms and busts, and also about the porn industry, the rise of the legalized porn industry. Megan Gyllenhaal is in it, and she said she made sure that the Deuce featured a, quote, real feminine orgasm. Yes. So that is a little interesting thing that you may not have known about that. I have to tell you, Maggie Gyllenhaal, it's Gyllenhaal. Whatever movie or TV show she does, I know she's going to be raw and real. Every character she plays has always been like that. What was that one she did with Julia Roberts and Mona Lisa Smile? Yeah, she played she was the one character, I think, that had issues or took the movie in a bizarre direction. She's always got this thing about her that she's in The Dark Knight. Riding in Cars with Boys, I forgot about that. And speaking of pornography, she was in The Pornographer, A Love Story. I forgot about that. I don't even know about that. I didn't even know that existed. But she's an adaptation. She was in way back. Oh, no, this is a recent thing. She's in something called Beauty Mark. Okay. Maggie Gyllenhaal. Okay. Meanwhile, there was something else. So it is Memorial Day. Oh, there is this story about how Willie Nelson has canceled concerts. He looked angry when he walked off stage at a concert, and he claimed he's sick. This was in Charlotte, North Carolina on Saturday. He put down his guitar and walked off stage, much to the dismay. Wow, he is now 85 and has smoked more marijuana than all of you listening combined, which I guess that doesn't really mean anything. But yeah, Storm Alberto weakens, thankfully, as it nears Florida. But it still is sending thousands fleeing. Yes, Alberto's top winds were, let's see, top winds fell slightly to 60 miles an hour, with the storm about 50 miles south of Panama City, Florida. It was expected to reach land this afternoon, so probably by the time you hear this. It is the first named Atlantic storm, thus it begins with the letter A of 2018. It spun up days before the formal June 1st start of the hurricane season. Yes, the hurricane season hasn't even begun. And I didn't realize till later when I booked my flight to Florida, I booked it like right in the middle of the hurricane season. So brilliant, Mike. Authorities in Florida's Franklin and Taylor counties issued mandatory evacuation orders for thousands of coastal residents. Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi are the states under emergency. Deadly hurricanes in the United States and the Caribbean last year did a bunch of damage. Puerto Rico. I was in Florida right after Irene, which they seem to be able to get things going again pretty quickly. Pluto might actually not, well, we know it's not a planet. Thanks a lot, guy from the reboot of Cosmos, who I will not say his name because his podcast is like the most listened to podcast ever. And he seems like a nice guy, but still, he made Pluto no longer a planet. What, is Pluto no longer a dog either? Well, over a decade ago, Pluto was downgraded from a planet to a dwarf planet. Now scientists have a new theory about the celestial body, that it is a huge comet. Scientists previously thought Pluto was formed like a planet 4.6 billion years ago after gas and ice bound together with a rocky core to create an enormous sphere in the sun's protoplanetary disk. But a team now at Southwest Research Institute have come up with a new theory about how Pluto formed at the edge of our solar system. And it is called the cosmochemical model of the Pluto formation. Researchers used data collected from NASA's New Horizons Space Interplanetary Space Probe to Pluto and the European Space Agency's Rosetta mission to the comet, called 67P Churyumov Gerasimenko. The preliminary paper outlining the theory was published in the journal Icarus. The idea centers around the nitrogen-packed ice of a large glacier named Sputnik Planitia, which makes up the left lobe of the Pluto's heart-shaped Tombog Regio area. And at this point, you have no idea, and I don't either. So, at any rate, they said, we have found an intriguing consistency between the estimated amount of nitrogen inside the glacier and the amount that would be expected if Pluto was formed by the agglomeration of roughly 1 billion comets or other what do they call it? The Kuiper Belt? Kuiper Belt objects similar in chemical composition to 67P, the comet explored by Rosetta. But data on Pluto's very cold ices also enabled the team to float the idea that Pluto has a similar chemical composition to the Sun, so the origins of Pluto remained unanswered. As we go outside a cafe anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Anything else interesting? Anything else you want to talk about? You can call me at my phone number here at Cafe Anyway is 336-MM-DAILY. That's 336-MM Daily. What is this Canadian honeymoon? Harry and Meghan Markle are honeymooning in Canada. They will spend their honeymoon at the Royal Retreat in Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge in Alberta. The royal couple did not jet off right away after their nuptials, though their reported plans to head to the New World together comes after a ceremony that drew heavily on Markle's American background. Yeah. Representing America. Good job, Markle. Represent. Markle. She's an M&M like me. Previous reports have said that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, so Sussexy, were planning to go to Namibia or elsewhere in Africa, where they had spent time early on in their relationship. Royal commentator Omid Scobie said that any location mentioned in the press is off the post-wedding reception table because of safety concerns. Well, at any rate, the important thing is that I don't know. Hey, but next show we're going to have I didn't even say hi to the characters. Should I say hi to the characters? What the hell? Let's say hi. Hello.
Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the gift shop supervisor. It's really nice outside. You should come outside more often.
I come outside at the end of every show, Chely.
You don't have to yell, Mike Matthews.
Sorry. You know, what do you think about Maggie Gyllenhaal?
She's great, Mike Matthews. She, always does these characters that are, so serious.
Yeah. They're always having sex, too. She does a lot of... Or is it Sussex? I don't know. I need to suss out the information. But maybe another show. Look who else is here. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Mike, this has been a very interesting show. Especially since you're in Podcastro Valleyton today. Yes. Podcastro Valleyton, where it is mighty hot. But yes, enjoy the rest of your week or so. Tomorrow morning, I guess, in less than 24 hours, I will have another podcast for you if all goes well. So enjoy that. But next show, we'll have, Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. Sounds good.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
Now your adventure through inner space has begun.